So you think you can beat me by outlawing my thoughts with your rogue politicians and the judges you bought? So you think you can mold me like I'm made out of clay? Oh, you want me to answer? Just got this to say. Take a look into this warrior's eyes. Tell me what you see. Take a look into this warrior's eyes. Oh, that still beats free.
Hello, this is Paul from I'm the Midnight Man for Stormfront Radio. You can catch me every night at midnight Eastern Time at www.stormfront.org with news and views for our people, and that our people are the founding settler European people of this continent. We know in the old days, if somebody wanted to fight, wanted to challenge somebody to a duel, and this would be 150 or 200 years ago in France, an aristocrat might take his glove and slap the other fellow in the face. In the Old West, a mean gunfighter might holler at the other gunfighter to come out and be a man and face him at 20 paces. Well, I'm going to lay down a challenge to a man named Alan Borovoy. No, I'm not going to slap him in the face with a glove or challenge him to come out with his six-shooter. We're in Canada, so probably couldn't even carry one. But you may want to ask, well, who is this Alan Borovoy? Well, for as long as I can remember, and that's quite a way, for at least 30 years, Alan Borovoy has been head of something called the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. And he's always been quoted in the papers. Any sort of civil rights issue comes along, there's Alan Borovoy, very diminutive and balding and intense, and he gets his 15 seconds in the sun. And recently he's been making a lot of noise about human rights commissions. Well, good, Alan. It only took you 40 years, but good to have you as an ally, I think. See, what's happened is, as we always knew it would, people with censorship on their mind cannot long resist the excitement of trying to shut somebody else up. Now, the Canadian Human Rights Commission has been doing this very nicely years ago with telephone answering machines, and more recently with the internet. And there have been a few chronic complainers like Richard Warman and a few others, always from the left, trying to silence, and I must say, effectively doing so because no victim ever wins, silencing people, if you want to, for lack of a better term, on the right. They went too far, though. A group of radical Muslims laid a complaint against Maclean's magazine just recently for reprinting a chapter from Mark Stein's book. And his book is critical of what he sees as the potential Muslim takeover, a radical Muslim takeover of Europe. So Maclean's magazine was complained against before the BC Human Rights Commission, the Ontario Human Rights Commission, and of course the Federal Human Rights Commission, because Maclean's magazine is on the internet, is up and online. Well, now, Mr. Borovoy, Alan Borovoy, is quoted all over the place as being absolutely amazed by this and most upset. In fact, here's the Globe and Mail quoting him, "It never occurred to us that this instrument, which was intended to deal with discrimination in housing, employment, and the provision of goods and services, would be used to muzzle the expression of opinion," Canadian Civil Liberties Association founder Alan Borovoy recently lamented. Come on, Alan. Come on. You can read. I know you can. You got through law school. This didn't just come up. This sort of censorship wasn't even dreamed up by judges or written into the legislation along the way. This censorship in the early days, it was just about telephone answering machines, was in the Canadian Human Rights Act from the get-go in 1978. You knew about it. The lawyers for Nsundel told you about it, in case you didn't. Because eventually the Human Rights Commission became more ambitious. They were no longer going after telephone answering machines because, after all, by the mid-90s, nobody was using those anymore except to take messages. The new way of communicating to a larger audience was the internet. And there began to be a very famous case involving Toronto publisher Ernst Zundel and something called the Zundel site. And at this point, the Human Rights Commission was going to take their censorship activities into this new technology called the Internet. And Mr. Borovoy was contacted numerous times to see if he would be prepared to put the weight of the Canadian Civil Liberties Association behind this challenge to this new power grab by the Canadian Human Rights Association. We heard nothing from him. Well, the cases piled up over the years. The law was changed officially in 2001. I don't think Mr. Borovoy had much to say about that. At least I didn't see him among those of us criticizing this new attack on what is the most democratic and accessible medium known to man, the Internet. He wasn't heard, and then the cases began to pile up. As always, they were attacking usually poor, usually young, often people who had no lawyers. I didn't see the Canadian Civil Liberties Association stepping forth. And when Marc Lemire launched a constitutional challenge against this evil law, who stood behind him as interveners? Doug Christie's Canadian Free Speech League and my Canadian Association for Free Expression. Where was the Canadian Civil Liberties Association? Don't know. Mr. Borovoy says that's not what human rights commissions were all about. Yes, they were. These censorship provisions, they vary from province to province. They've been active and in place for 20 years. Back in the late 1990s, journalist Doug Collins was attacked twice by the BC Human Rights Commission. Once he was acquitted, the second time he was convicted. This was a high-profile case. I know Mr. Borovoy reads the newspapers. I know he knew about that. Where was he? Where was he when his voice could have done some good? Well, here's the challenge. No, I'm not going to hit him over the head with a leather glove. Here's the challenge. Look, Alan, the Marc Lemire's constitutional challenge against this evil thought control censorship law is ongoing. I invite you to join us. I invite you and the Canadian Civil Liberties Association to seek intervener or interested party, or for our American friends, amicus curiae status, and intervene in this case for freedom of speech. Stop running your mouth and start actually doing something. You know, I've long had a problem with Mr. Borovoy's commitment to freedom of speech. He claims to be against censorship legislation, but in the late 1980s, he wrote a book entitled When Rights Collide. And you know what he did in that? He said in that book, he had the kind of unique idea that if you were a teacher, you of course had a right to speak up politically on controversial matters, and he didn't think that the law should stop you. But he said, if you have spoken up and you've offended one or another privileged group, well then you don't have a right to be a teacher. This was used as a justification for eventually terminating the career of a fine math teacher in New Brunswick, my friend Malcolm Ross. It was also used as a justification for terminating my career as an English instructor in the province of Ontario. Yes, Mr. Borovoy, you have a lot to answer for. We'd like you to start walking the walk, not just talking the talk about freedom of speech. I'm Paul Fromm. I'm the Midnight Man with Stormfront Radio. I urge you to catch me every night at www.stormfront.org, midnight Eastern Time.